I don't really work on customers' cars, but I think the eye-opening thing is when we show what's the car's made out of and how it's built.
A $3.6 million Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport crashed, with repair costs reportedly climbing toward $2 million. Rather than simply restoring it, owner Mat Armstrong chose an ambitious custom transformation. But the $700,000 makeover quickly divided the automotive world. Was it a visionary rebuild or an expensive failure? With only 60 Pur Sports ever produced, expectations were enormous. Viewers anticipated something completely unique, yet the final result sparked criticism over its styling, fitment, value, and execution. This is the story of one of the boldest, most controversial, and most expensive Bugatti builds ever attempted. The central controversy. Few stories in the automotive world have stirred as much debate as the $700,000 wide-body kit slapped onto a wrecked Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport. This wasn't just another upgrade, it was pitched as a groundbreaking transformation. But instead of awe, the public reaction was shock and, for many, disappointment. The core of the controversy lies in whether the shop behind the kit, Venuum, delivered true value or simply took advantage of a high-profile client. At face value, a $700,000 price tag promises exclusivity, precision, and impeccable craftsmanship, especially on a car with fewer than 60 examples worldwide. Yet, when the kit was unveiled, it didn't land as expected. Instead of elevating the already rare Chiron, many viewers saw a body kit that looked clumsy and poorly integrated. Comments flooded in, some outright mocking the design and fitment, questioning how such a costly project could go so wrong. What triggered this backlash was not just the appearance, but the gap between expectation and reality. For months, fans followed Mat Armstrong's saga of overcoming massive hurdles, from a crash to being blacklisted by Bugatti itself. The wide-body kit represented the climax, the moment where Armstrong would prove that an independent rebuild could transcend Bugatti's strict control. Instead, it became a symbol of failure in the eyes of many. Despite the harsh criticism, no evidence has emerged proving Venuum engaged in fraud or overcharged without delivering. The real question is more nuanced. Did the finished product justify the massive investment? Many remain unconvinced, and the doubt lingers because the root of the problem wasn't just stylistic. It touched on engineering, fitment, and transparency, details that are far harder to assess than just looks. Adding to the tension, Mat Armstrong's reputation was also on the line. He'd become that underdog hero, going up against a titan. And honestly, the public was pulling for him. But the second the kit was revealed, the vibe changed. The talk shifted pretty fast from celebrating ingenuity to nitpicking judgment. And suddenly, Venuum was the thing everybody was staring at, with harsh scrutiny. Whether it was choices in the design or some deeper miscalculations, the project's failure started to feel, to a lot of people, kinda personal. Still, we should not forget, this was a first-of-its-kind effort. The wide-body kit wasn't just some off-the-shelf purchase either. It was a $700,000 experiment, built on a platform with no real precedent for this kind of customization. That context messes up the easy scam label, and it also sets the stage for the details we'll circle back to later. Something fundamental went wrong, but the why and the how don't fit neatly in a headline, so they need a closer look. Whatever side you land on, this whole controversy ended up reshaping how enthusiasts view not only this specific project, but also the capabilities and the risks tied to ultra-high-end customization. It also challenged the assumption that big budgets automatically equal stunning results. At that kind of rarefied level, mistakes aren't just expensive. They can turn into public spectacle and reputational landmines too. Getting that backdrop in your head really matters if you want to understand why so many questions still don't have answers. Sure, the headline might scream disaster or scam, but underneath it, there's a messy, tangled story involving engineering hurdles, branding fights, and expectations that may have been unrealistic from the start. The full truth is something we'll begin unpacking as we go back and trace how all of this started in the first place. Across this tension, the origins of the car's troubles set the scene for what happened next. The crash and repair. Roadblock. Alex Gonzalez's $3.6 million Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport didn't just sit idle before this controversy. It was wrecked in a rear-end collision with a minivan. The crash caused severe damage, and Bugatti's repair estimate quickly climbed to an eye-watering $1.7 million. For most owners, that would be the end of the story, but Gonzalez wasn't willing to accept the manufacturer's terms or price. Bugatti's response to the crash was unusual and harsh. Not only did they issue a massive repair bill, but they also blacklisted the vehicle's VIN, making official factory parts and services off-limits. This left Gonzalez effectively stranded with a car no longer recognized by its own maker, turning a repair job into a near-impossible quest. For an owner determined to keep their prized vehicle, this felt like an institutional roadblock. Enter Mat Armstrong, a figure who had garnered a massive following by taking on this challenge as an underdog. Armstrong didn't just want to fix the Bugatti, he wanted to redefine what could be done independently. But without factory support and facing a blacklisted VIN, the path ahead was treacherous. Conventional repair was off the table, and the alternative was creating something new altogether. This barrier laid on Gonzalez's car ended up making a strange mix of chance and danger. Instead of putting everything back to the original design, Armstrong tried to arrange a complete overhaul, a wide-body kit that was supposed to look unlike anything the Chiron Pur Sport had ever seen. It was this bold gamble that happened mostly because they had to, not because they wanted to. The other paths were either ridiculously expensive factory bills or just letting the car disappear altogether. That crack in the usual rhythm of factory repairs basically pushed the whole thing out into more or less uncharted waters. Going custom wasn't only a business opening, it was also a bit of pushback against Bugatti's limits. Still, the moment they chose that route, they also had to deal with unknown engineering headaches and visual choices too, without official blueprints or even real guidance to lean on. In this kind of setup, the stakes were massive. Spending every dollar wasn't just about how it looked. It was also about getting control back on a car the manufacturer kind of treated as already gone. So, yes, it's a tale of persistence, but it is also about the friction between a boutique owner and a global luxury brand that can, quite literally, dictate the outcome. The crash and those factory roadblocks didn't only interrupt the car, they bent the entire story into a new shape. It put Armstrong and Gonzalez in a position where an ambitious makeover became not merely a creative preference, but a requirement born out of circumstance. This context matters a lot when you're trying to understand what came next. Understanding the foundation helps explain why a specialized and demanding shop like Venuum became involved, setting the stage for the daunting task they faced. Venuum's ambitious wide-body design. The customization shop tasked with this audacious project was Venuum, a Dubai-based firm known for bespoke wide-body kits and radical modifications. Given the unique status of Gonzalez's Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, Venuum was stepping into territory few had ever dared to tread. The mission was not to simply repair the car, but to create a wide-body kit that would elevate it into a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. However, there was an immediate and critical complication. The wide-body kit Venuum planned to use wasn't originally designed for the Pur Sport variant. Instead, it was built around the dimensions of a standard Chiron. On paper, the differences between these models might seem minor, but when dealing with precision carbon fiber bodywork and tightly engineered aerodynamics, even subtle shifts can create massive fitment problems. This mismatch forced Armstrong's team into significant improvisation. They had to cut, reshape, and modify original carbon fiber panels just to make Venuum's wide-body components fit onto the Pur Sport chassis. Such on-the-fly engineering is rarely ideal, especially for a $700,000 project where buyers expect flawless integration and precision design. Moreover, Modifications extended to structural elements like side skirts and the front end to accommodate more aggressive styling cues than the car's architecture was built to support. This wasn't just about aesthetics, but also about how the car's aerodynamics, cooling, and chassis rigidity would function after the transformation, areas where any misstep can become costly and dangerous. Despite Armstrong's praise for the project as a groundbreaking first, this first also hinted at the immense risks involved. Venuum was attempting something never done before on this platform, but that novelty carried a price: engineering headaches and an uphill battle to meet the expectations set by a highly anticipated build. When the custom body kit was finally revealed, the result showed the challenges clearly. To many, the fitment issues, awkward lines, and forced alterations were signs of a kit that hadn't been engineered with this exact car in mind. What should have been a seamless upgrade looked noticeably patchy to seasoned eyes. While no accusations of fraud or deception have surfaced, this technical backstory sheds light on why so many viewers questioned whether the final product deserved its $700,000 price tag. The ambitious design effort clashed with real-world vehicle specifics, setting up a disconnect between concept and execution. This tension between innovation and reality underpinned much of the frustration. What looked like a visionary move to reimagine a rare hypercar began to feel like an expensive experiment that got tangled in the complexity of modifying a machine engineered with extreme precision. The reactions that followed only deepened the divide between hope and disappointment, pulling the story into a new, more contentious chapter. Public backlash and viewer reactions. When the wide-body kit was finally revealed to the public, the reaction was swift and overwhelmingly negative. Instead of admiration or excitement, many viewers expressed disbelief and frustration. Comments flooded social media and forums, with some critics going as far as to say this $700,000 transformation looked worse than the damaged car it sought to improve. Harsh comparisons were drawn to widely polarizing brands like Mansory, companies known for pushing extreme design boundaries, yet now seeming tame by comparison. One common thread in the backlash was disappointment in the kit's fitment and aesthetic coherence. Viewers noticed awkward panel gaps, mismatched proportions, and visual discontinuities that raised questions about the engineering quality behind such an expensive project. The fact that the kit was never intended for the Pur Sport model only intensified skepticism, as it seemed to confirm many fears that this was a rushed or ill-conceived attempt rather than a bespoke masterpiece. Many comments didn't just critique the design, but also expressed sympathy for Gonzalez, suggesting he deserved better given the price point. Some joked that Bugatti should have sent replacement panels free of charge out of guilt, while others lamented how a previously unknown company like Venuum quickly became the subject of widespread condemnation. For fans who had followed the rebuild journey closely, this was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet the backlash wasn't solely about aesthetics or engineering flaws. It also reflected a deeper sense that the magic of this project had been lost. The audience had invested emotionally in the underdog story, Mat Armstrong fighting a faceless giant. And this $700,000 wide-body was supposed to be the climactic triumph. Instead, it felt like a stumble, even a betrayal, as critical fans shifted their ire from Bugatti to Armstrong and Venuum. It's worth saying that even if the reaction was mostly negative, taste is super subjective, especially when we start talking about wide-body modifications. For every person who criticizes, there's another set of enthusiasts who really like that bold, uncustomary look, even if it kind of pushes people away. Honestly, wide-body kits have this long tendency of splitting opinions inside the supercar world, sometimes praised for their aggressive flair, other times just treated like visual overkill. But when you're dealing with a car as adored and as meticulously designed as the Bugatti Chiron, the visual balance stakes feel higher than usual. Any change from what Bugatti's own designers shaped is instantly reviewed and nitpicked, and wide-body kits basically tweak the proportions in ways that can make the purists step back. So the backlash, ends up being predictable, even if it still feels annoying or disappointing for a project that already broke far from the original concept. At the center of the criticism, there's this basic pull and push, the original elegance of the car versus the alterations forced onto it. A lot of fans read this build as less of a natural evolution, more like a compromise, and that sense of compromise seems to weaken the very traits that made the Chiron Pur Sport stand out, not strengthen them. That viewpoint likely fed a good chunk of the negative mood that rolled out after the reveal. Under the harsh lines, memes, and all the noise, there's still real enthusiasm for the car and for the bigger narrative of resilience that surrounds it. This kind of disappointment doesn't feel like pure cynicism, more like the emotional gap between what people expected and what actually landed. It's that reaction when you want a project to work out, against all odds, and it doesn't quite meet the hope. Even as disappointment set in, questions about the value of such a significant investment remained at the forefront of the conversation. Assessing the $700,000 investment, spending $700,000 on a wide-body kit creates extremely high expectations. At that price, buyers expect more than additional panels and aggressive styling. They expect a fully bespoke transformation engineered specifically for their vehicle, with perfect fitment, premium craftsmanship, and clear value. However, the kit installed on Mat Armstrong's Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport was not originally designed for that exact variant. This caused major complications and forced Armstrong's team to make extensive adjustments during installation. Original carbon fiber panels reportedly had to be cut and reshaped to accommodate the new components. The side skirts, front end, and other sections also required modification because the car's original structure was not built around the kit's aggressive design. This on-the-fly engineering raised serious concerns. For a $700,000 project, customers would normally expect every component to match the car's mounting points, panel gaps, and structural design. Instead, the process appeared to rely heavily on improvisation. That gap between expectation and delivery explains why many questioned whether the investment was justified. Without full details about what Venuum originally promised, it is difficult to determine exactly what went wrong. Some viewed the build as a bold experiment facing unavoidable challenges. Others believed it failed to meet the standards expected from such an expensive commission. Public reaction also affected the kit's perceived value. Millions followed the rebuild and expected a flawless final reveal. When viewers noticed fitment concerns and divisive styling, excitement quickly turned into disappointment. Still, Venuum faced an extraordinary challenge. Only 60 Chiron Pur Sports were produced, leaving almost no aftermarket support or existing reference parts. That difficulty explains some of the problems, but it does not completely excuse them. At this price, clear communication and exceptional execution are essential. Ultimately, the question remains, did Venuum overpromise and underdeliver? Or was this simply an ambitious and costly experiment that failed to reach its full potential? The unfolding reaction soon cast a wider light on more than just financials, reshaping the narrative around this storied project. The bigger picture, innovation versus expectation. This entire saga reveals the difficult balance between innovation and expectation in the world of ultra-exclusive cars. With a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, every modification is judged under intense scrutiny, especially when thousands of viewers have followed the project from the beginning. Mat Armstrong's rebuild became more than a repair. After overcoming obstacles and proving a crashed Chiron could return to life, he built enormous goodwill with his audience. But once the project shifted from restoration to an ambitious redesign, expectations rose just as quickly. Every detail was compared against the standards of a world-class supercar. A project carrying a $700,000 price tag naturally invited demands for perfection, I guess. But this build got pushed into kind of untested territory by adapting a wide-body kit that was never specifically engineered for the Pur Sport. So it stopped being a simple upgrade, more like a high-risk experiment where it's hard to say success was ever on the table in the first place. A lot of the pushback seemed to come from that weird gap between expectation and reality. Viewers expected something clean, flawless, and basically a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. Yet plenty of people pointed at controversial styling, questionable fitment, and a final look that didn't really manage to justify the price tag. When the hype gets ahead of the finished result, disappointment often sneaks in pretty fast. Still, this project shows how genuinely hard true innovation can be. Designing aftermarket parts for one of the world's rarest hypercars leaves almost zero room for error, and every move is amplified by the public's attention. Sometimes, trying what nobody has done before also reveals problems that only show up through trial and error, or late nights and more revisions than planned. In the end, this isn't only the story of a controversial wide-body kit. It's also a reminder that ambition on its own cannot really guarantee success. In the realm of bespoke automotive customization, passion, engineering, and public expectation have to line up together. And when they don't, even the boldest projects can turn into cautionary tales instead of celebrated achievements. Mat Armstrong's $700,000 Bugatti kit sparked fierce debate, proving that even the boldest ambitions can fall short when expectations rise too high. This story reminds us that innovation must be balanced with realistic planning, careful execution, and clear communication. If you found this deep dive insightful, please like and subscribe for more automotive stories explored with care. And before you go, watch the next video appearing on your screen to uncover another incredible story from the automotive world. Thanks for watching.